Hello, everybody. Welcome to the WCIA Election Center. We're going to be breaking down all of the results here tonight. I appreciate you joining us. We're going to be here from 8 all the way until 9 p.m., where our newscasts are going to pick it up and take it from there. Thank you again for joining us. And if you're wondering, hey, these WCIA live streams normally are about weather or something, well, don't worry. This stream still has the Kevin Lighty touch. He's in the back. He's helping me in the control room. You'll hear me talk to him every once in a while and join them here. So we're going to hit on all of the big races, obviously president, but we're going to go down to the state level races, the congressional races, and we're going to hit those local referendums here and make sure you're up to date on all of the results as they come in. And again, we're going to be hearing results. We're going to be getting them as they come in, and I'll be able to update you right away. The screen behind me will be showing certain results as I talk about these races, so it'll be up to date as possible for you. So first, I need to address the elephant in the room, though. What happened here in Champaign County this morning? Polls closed completely for 2 hours as the county tried to fix technical issues from a third-party vendor that they had brought in for their computer systems. Again, this shut down polls for 2 hours, a problem with the Platinum service that the county has been using. At around 8:30, polling locations got back up and running and people were able to cast their ballots. From there, we heard that state's attorney, Julia Reitz, went to the courtroom. She tried to extend voting hours by 2 hours. That did not work. They ended up withdrawing that application. So here in Champaign County, polls are still open for anybody who got in line before 7 p.m. So if you are still in line and you're listening to this, you're allowed to stay as long as you were there before 7 p.m. You can get your ballot cast. So stay in line, get your voice heard, cast your vote. The reason, though, that application, that filing to extend those voting hours was rejected or was withdrawn, was because of the legal issues around it and how these votes would have been cast in that overtime session. So let's say that they extended hours from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Any ballot that got cast in that window would have been what's called a provisional ballot. It's a lot more complicated than your regular ballot. Voters would have had to sign an affidavit. They would have had to go through an entire process. And the real trick with provisional ballots is that they would be easily challenged. And we saw Republicans pretty much right away in the challenging the initial filing, saying that, hey, this isn't legal exactly how you need to do it, because we saw Democrats really pushing for a regular voting session and not that provisional ballot. Well, when they got to the courtroom at 1:30 this afternoon, we learned that they needed to have provisional ballots, so they went ahead and withdrew it. So from there, we know that polls closed at their regular time. Anybody in line from 7 p.m. will get to vote. Now, I want to show you the races that we could see an impact from that on, because there could be people that just ended up not being able to vote today. The big races we're going to be paying attention to see if that has an impact on. We're going to start here, the 52nd State District. You'll notice zeros on the board. We don't know any results for these races yet. Again, polls closed an hour ago. We haven't seen any results come in. Champaign County cannot release any results until the final votes are cast and they're able to close up shop. Paul Faraci facing Jeff Brownfield. Faraci, the incumbent Democrat, running against the Republican Brownfield. This race makes up a lot of Champaign and Vermilion County. Though that's where this district is. Faraci, the incumbent here, needs a big turnout in the Champaign area for this kind of race. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. The other big race we're looking at, the 104th State Representative District. This district is between Republican incumbent Brandon Schweizer and Democrat challenger Jarrett Clem. And I'll show you on the map where this district really is going to be interesting. A lot of rural Champaign County here. This cuts out entirely Champaign and Urbana and gets a ton of Vermilion County. These Champaign County votes are going to be huge in that race. So we'll be seeing it as it comes in, where they're really going to see that impact. Now, again, for everybody in the polling lines or anybody wondering how this all happened today, I want to give a little bit more information. There was a Platinum service, that's what it's called, for the Champaign County Clerk's Office. It's actually a service that's used by many counties across the state, a couple dozen, if my count is correct. This service, the servers crashed very early on, just minutes into polls being opened. It caused problems for other counties, but nowhere near as extensive as here in Champaign County. One of them, Sangamon County saw some problems with their in-person same-day voter registration. But the reason that they didn't have as much of a problem as Champaign, for instance, is because they had pre-printed ballots at their polling location and did not need to remotely access their ballots. So when they started to they were able to keep the ballots moving. They were able to keep everything going. But for same-day voter registration, they had to actually call the county clerk's office and remotely feed back voter information to get them registered. That was the hiccup you saw in Sangamon County. Again, Champaign County, way more complicated. Every single part of the election system today was shut down for 2 hours. So we're going to go to Amanda Brennan here in just a few minutes. She's live at Brookins. We don't have her up yet, I believe, but we're going to go to her. She's going to tell us what the attitude's like at the main headquarters for Champaign County here. But for now, I just want to go back over some of these legal challenges that played out today. Champaign County State's Attorney Julia Reitz coming in and trying to extend voting hours. The request was extended from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. They wanted it to be a just regular election process, but state law states that those ballots that would be cast in that window would have to be provisional ballots, and provisional ballots are much more complicated, much stickier, much more easily challenged. And ultimately, they just decided it wasn't worth that effort, because if they didn't have an agreement between the local Democrat Party and the local Republican Party to extend hours, they just put everything at risk for a lot more challenges down the line that could have had much bigger implications for this election here in Champaign County. So again, we're going to be breaking down results here, but I want to stick with the Champaign County thing for now. I'm going to go ahead and bring in Amanda Brennan, if possible, if we can get her queued up here. Let me get on my line here to talk to her, see what we can do. Amanda, can you hear me?
Yeah, Cole, I got you.
All right, Amanda, you are outside of Brookins Auditorium there in Champaign. Thank you for joining us here. I just want to start off here. You've been there now for a couple hours. What has it been like as polls have officially, were supposed to close, but are still open for right now?
Yeah, Cole, it's a totally different environment now than when I arrived here just a few hours ago. I drove into the Brookins Center around 2 o'clock, and I had to circle the parking lot several times just to even get a spot. Now I'm looking at the parking lot. You can have your fair choice of parking spots. People are really starting to leave. People are just filing out of the gym again. I saw the security close down the line at 7. And I even met the people who were the last ones in line. They had a sign that said last voters here at Brookins, so they were excited to be able to cast their ballots and be the last ones here at Brookins for the evening. That wrapped up around 7. The line inside in the gym is really starting to wrap up now.
You and Karina Rubio were both out there during our 6 o'clock newscast, and I know you spoke with Aaron Ammons, the county clerk, while he was there. What did he have to tell you while you were out there with him?
Well, Clerk Ammons expects smooth sailing for the rest of the evening. We asked him some basic questions like what of the most busiest locations have been throughout the day. He said, well, that's easy. It's been the Champaign Public Library, here at Brookins, over in Mahomet, and then a few campus locations such as the Illini Union. So the next step for his evening, once the last voters make their way out of the polls here across the county, the election judges will be breaking things down and then starting to sort through some of the ballots. Now, again, he wanted to remind us that they cannot start releasing any results until the last person rolls through, turns in their ballot, it goes through the tabulator, all those steps that they have to take. So he's hoping for around 9 p.m. that we start getting results. He joked that we're hoping to see some before the 10 o'clock newscast. So some changes that he's looking at doing. We asked him, we've seen what's happened today. You touched on it yourself, Cole, with these long lines. Polling places were closed for a little bit. We're like, what would you change? And he said he's always looking for best practices. And he's, in fact, looking into backup plans with their contractor after their contract ends. I'm not sure when that's up, but he is always looking into backup plans.
Amanda, we were at a press conference with County Clerk Ammons and State's Attorney Julia Reitz earlier today, and we asked him why there weren't those paper ballots on the, as backup or paper polling books at all of their precincts. He said, just like you said, he's going to look into that for future elections now. But obviously a lot of frustrations building up for voters as they found out that those plans weren't in place this time around. I'm curious, did you talk with voters that were in line now, maybe ones that tried to go this morning and couldn't make it? And what was the attitude like for the people that were in line and having to stay into these overtime hours?
Cole, overall, the attitude of voters here at Brookings has been fairly positive. Like I've said, I've been here quite a few hours now. People are keeping high spirits. A few students even bringing their laptops to get some studying done. They have exams tomorrow, and they said might as well kill two birds with one stone, right? Wait in line, get some studying done, and then cast their ballots. Everyone that's been filing out most recently has been waiting about 2 hours, but they say it's okay. It's no problem. We just want to do our part. We want to cast our ballots, and even if that means waiting 2 hours. So overall here at Brookings, spirits have been high. Voters are happy, and now they're going back home waiting for those results to come in.
Well, Amanda, I'm going to let you go for now, and I'm going to get into some of those results myself. Amanda Brennan, outside of Brookings, thank you so much. Let's get into the races. So we've talked enough about locally here, the problems here in Champaign County. Let's talk about the big ones. Obviously, the race everybody is paying attention to tonight is that presidential race. Let's look at the nationwide results so far. Again, so early in this race. You can see precinct numbers still very low, but right now in the popular vote, we're seeing a small lead for former President Donald Trump over Vice President Harris in this race. Then we can go over to statewide. This is how Illinois is voting specifically. We have Robert Kennedy Jr. in this polling because he was on your ballots today. So you're seeing he even has a little bit he's got some votes to his name here in Illinois, 31% in. Harris having a commanding lead in here. That is not surprising. This is the third time that Donald Trump has run for president. In Illinois, in the prior two elections, he lost by 16 and 17 points, respectively, here in Illinois. There's been no indication that there would be a major shift in those particular numbers. Let's go over to the electoral map. This is obviously where the game is won here. A long way to go here as well. Actually, AP has Illinois as blue, giving Kamala Harris those 19 votes here. As you can see, a lot of the typical red states are red on this map. We still have a lot to really play out, especially a lot of the swing states. Pennsylvania has been the one everybody has been talking about. Recent polling actually showed Iowa might be in the ball game here. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. You got the Michigans, you got the Wisconsins, you got all the big names. We're going to be revisiting this map a lot tonight, but for right now, we're going to go away from it and talk about some of the big congressional races here in Illinois. Let's start off right here in Central Illinois with the 13th congressional district. Nikki Budzinski, only 5% of these precincts in. These numbers are very, very early, but we have Nikki Budzinski with a strong lead to start, 58%, to Joshua Lloyd, her Republican challengers, 42%. Lloyd, pretty much a political newcomer in this race. He's a veteran. When I interviewed him, he talked a lot about how he was just unhappy with when he wouldn't hear back from his local representation. He wanted to change that. He wanted to represent people. Nikki Budzinski has been in office now for 2 years in a district that was previously very solidly red with Rodney Davis. Now, Budzinski, once taking over this district after the remap, has focused a lot on bipartisanship in the Capitol. She believes that is the bread and butter to maintaining office and to helping people across the Central Illinois district. And you can see why with the makeup of this map. We start here in Champaign. We go all the way across, hitting Decatur, Springfield, a lot of the southwestern part of the state into the Metro East in East St. Louis and the Metro East. A lot of that area really has the cities, obviously. It has Champaign, it has Decatur, it has Springfield, and the Metro East areas, but it has a lot of rural Illinois as well. And she really wanted to focus on getting a lot of that agriculture representation. We heard a lot about the farm bill from her in recent years. So she's hoping that helps her out in this polling location and really gets her set up here into this race. So we're very early on in this race. Again, few results coming in. We'll be revisiting this one as well a lot tonight. Let's go over now to our next congressional district, the 17th. Joe McGraw and Eric Sorensen really getting a big, this is a big congressional race here in Illinois, could have a big weight on who controls the House of Representatives in D.C. Eric Sorensen, the Democratic incumbent, running against Republican retired Judge Joe McGraw. This, again, very, very early, 10% in, with Joe McGraw holding an early lead. We don't have an exact breakdown of where these ballots are coming from, and knowing where these votes are coming from and seeing it is a big part of this district as well, because shockingly, look at the weird shape here in Illinois for a congressional district. That is not, this is one of the wilder ones. We go up in Rockford, over to the Quad Cities in Moline, down to Peoria, and over to Bloomington. This district basically drawing an outline around the west side of the state, has a lot of ground to cover. And again, you'll notice some similarities on the Democrat side here. Eric Sorensen really pushing for a bipartisan record on this campaign trail. He says he practically lives in the aisle. He stands in the middle of the aisle. That's often how he talks about his time in Congress. Joe McGraw offering a different vision for this area of the state. He really talks about some of those national campaign trail items we see from Republicans, while not really likening himself to the top of the ticket as much. When I talked to him, he talked a lot about immigration, crime, and the economy. Those were his big topics. Eric Sorensen talking about similar areas, but offering obviously different solutions, being from the opposite party. But we will see which message really sticks out for this area. We saw one real poll come out late just this past weekend about this race, and it showed Sorensen having a 5-point lead in this race. But obviously, we have a long way to go before we actually see, hey, more votes came in just while we were talking about this race here. Eric Sorensen tying things up, essentially, just a couple 180 vote difference there on that particular race. So we are going to have a long way to go with this race. We got a lot to talk about with it, so we will come back to it a little bit later. Let's go. Actually, we're going to come back to that race with Theodora Coulivares here in a little bit as well. She's actually at the Sorensen watch party. She's not ready yet, but we're going to come back to her in a little bit, talk to her about what's going on there. Let's go ahead and go to our local state races. These are the races that we're going to have a hard time getting some results for, because these are the ones that have big parts of Champaign County. Brandon Schweizer, the Republican incumbent, he took over about a year ago from Mike Marin when he retired abruptly from the State House. Schweizer has had 1 year in the State House to try to build up that resume for voters to choose him again. And you know what? That short time period made Democrats see him as vulnerable. They're running a very, very strong and well-funded campaign against Schweizer. Jarrett Clem, backed heavily by the state Democratic Party as well as labor unions. I'm sure if you live in the central Illinois area, you've seen plenty of ads about this particular race. Again, we don't have any results for this one yet, but we will continue to bring you them once we start to get those Champaign numbers and Vermilion County numbers in particular. The reason these state house races are so important, though, is because of the makeup of the state house in Springfield right now. Currently, there are Democratic supermajorities in the House, the Senate, and Democrats have every single constitutional office. That's the governor, that's the lieutenant governor, that's the treasurer, the comptroller, and the secretary of state. They're all Democrats. That means, especially with the supermajorities in the House and Senate, there does not need to be a single yes vote from a Republican in the state house on any vote that they would take. Democrats can get everything through on their own. Republicans know that they are not going to flip those majorities in one presidential election year, but they're hoping they can build some momentum and get this going, gain some ground, and just really chip away. So Republicans trying to make ground on that, but in order to do that, they have to keep the seats that they already have. So that's where Brandon Schweizer comes into play. This is a seat that's been a steady Republican district for years. And if they lose a seat like this, that just doesn't spell good news, obviously, for the wider Democratic Party in the state. I'm going to pull up the map for this district just to tell you about why this is such an interesting district. It holds a good chunk of Champaign County here, except for Champaign-Urbana. This little hole you see in the map there in the 104th, that's Champaign-Urbana, and it is pretty much entirely excluded. And then it goes over to the Vermilion County area and picks up Danville. So once with this big area, this is a lot of Trump country. Vermilion County voted heavily in Trump's favor, despite the broader state going heavily in Democrats' favor in the past 2 elections. So Republicans really hoping that this area of this map stays red and the rural Champaign County stays red as well. That's where you see a win for Brandon Schweizer. But if you start to see some shifts in the makeup here, that's where you could see that Democrat upset. So especially when they're running a candidate like Jared Clem, who fashions himself very much a moderate, that's what you got to look out for here. So we are actually going to go back to the 17th congressional district race really quick because we have Eric Sorensen against Joe McGraw. I told you we were going to be coming back to that, and the reason we're doing it is because we have Theodora Coulivares. She is up in Moline at the Eric Sorensen campaign watch party. Theodora, thank you so much for joining us. Theodora, can you hear me? Okay, I think we're actually having some trouble getting to Theodora on the mic side here. All right, we're going to actually come back to Theodora in a little bit here. I know we have video, but I don't think we have the audio right now for her. So we are going to come back in a little bit for her. But again, we'll talk about the Eric Sorensen, Joe McGraw race when we get her back up and running. Going to switch over to the 52nd State Senate district here. This one is also Champaign County. Again, 0% in, zeros on the board. We do not have the results from this district yet, but I want to go into why this race is important as well. This is a seat, if you remember, this is the seat that was held by late Senator Scott Bennett. Scott Bennett died a couple of years ago from a undiscovered brain tumor. Paul Faraci, one of his good friends, a Democrat in the county, took his seat, went over and was appointed to it, and really spent the last couple of years living on to his legacy, living up to that legacy that he had. He focused on a lot of the same ideas, and he says he still wants to stick with that going forward. He wants to see a lot of that same policy keep going. He has some ideas of his own as well. Jeff Brownfield, the Republican, has a different vision for the state. He's hoping to get in there and talk a little bit about fiscal responsibility, try to edge out some of that Democrat fiscal policy that we've seen lately. So we're going to go one more time back to Theodora here for the U.S. 17th Congressional District and see if she can hear us this time around. Theodora, can you hear me? All right, there we go. We got her from up in Moline. Theodora, thank you for joining us from the Eric Sorensen campaign party. Just tell me, what's the vibe like up there right now?
They're feeling really good about how things are going. Of course, we're still waiting for more results to come in, but overall, they say that they're feeling good. We've seen a lot of people come out tonight, a lot of supporters of Eric Sorensen who are here tonight for his event. We talked to the campaign. They also said he has stopped over the last 4 days, he's been to all 14 counties within the district. So overall, right now, they're feeling pretty good about how things are going.
You talked to both of these candidates. What can you tell me about what their platforms are, what they really want to see for this district? Obviously, we know a little bit about what Eric Sorensen's agenda is being in office, but what does Joe McGraw really want to see, and how does that compare to his opponent?
McGraw's biggest priority right now has to do with immigration and border security. He's really touted himself as, and really portrayed himself as, the law and order candidate in this race, especially because of that issue. He says He has so many endorsements from law enforcement officials within the district, and he says he really wants to crack down on fentanyl. That's the biggest issue he's saying that he's seeing. Now, Sorensen also saying he is looking to put an end to to concerns about fentanyl. We've seen that he has sponsored legislation in Congress that aims to do that by putting more money, technology, and resources for border protection officials to help them in doing their jobs. Thank you.
These local state level races and really hit on some of these going from here. I was talking about the 52nd state district. Obviously, this is a big deal for the Senate. We're going to keep an eye on this one as more results are coming in going forward. A couple other big races that we see in the Senate specifically, we got Dave Kaler running again. He's already jumped out to a pretty big lead very early on, though. We have a lot more to come in from that particular race. This is over in the just kind of the Bloomington and West part of the state. So it's a little bit north of the area here across the Springfield, Decatur, Champaign part of the state. But this is obviously a big district. Dave Kaler's been in office for quite a long time, and he's looking to hold on to that. One of the other big districts, this is out of this area, but I just want to show you, this one's so interesting to me. Kevin Schmidt, Latoya Greenwood. Latoya Greenwood is the Democrat in this race. Kevin Schmidt, the Republican. This is the exact same matchup that happened in 2022. Kevin Schmidt, the Republican, upsets Latoya Greenwood after the remap. This district is actually down in the East St. Louis area and rural Illinois. This is another area where Democrats are looking to claw even more power and gain even larger majorities in the area. Another one I'm going to be paying attention to personally, just for the area, for what the Senate makeup is going, or what the House makeup is going to be looking like going forward. Now, again, other races we're looking at, we have 104th State House District, still no results coming in for that one. And we're going to be tracking, we're going to have a couple guests coming in here in just a couple of minutes to talk more about the results or lack of results that we have here. We're going to have State Senator Chapin Rose and Urbana Alderman James Quisenberry coming in to talk about some of these races. I'm going to see if I can have them come in now and we can get started here. But really, I want to go to a quick story. Kevin, if you can hear me, I want to go give people a little bit more of an idea of what the financial disparity is between the Democrat and Republican Party right now. State finance and state fundraising for these two parties is drastically different. And that's what having the power in the Capitol and a billionaire governor really gets for you when you're on the campaign trail. So, Kevin, if we can run the state story or state finance.
Democrats run the show in the Illinois Capitol. They have supermajorities in both the House and Senate and control of every constitutional office. With the election less than 2 weeks away, it's also clear they have a massive fundraising advantage.
Right now, you would much rather be chairman of the state Democratic Party than the state Republican Party.
House Speaker Chris Welch spent $7 million on various House Democrat campaigns across the state in just the past 3 months. And after all of that, he still has almost $8 million in the bank for final cash injections. House Republican leader Tony McCombie, meanwhile, raised just under $1 million and spent $1.7 million out to Republican races. She has just over $600,000 left to spend across the state.
You know, you've got this huge collapse in what has been the traditional Republican fundraising.
The Illinois Senate is a similar story, with Senate President Don Harmon having over 8 times the amount of cash that Senate Republican leader John Curran has. UIS Professor Emeritus Kent Redfield says this fundraising gap has really grown over the past decade. During the Bruce Rauner era, Republicans relied on him and billionaire mega donors like Ken Griffin and Richard Uihlein to back them. But that faucet is not running anymore. Meanwhile, Democrats have their own billionaire in Governor Pritzker, and being in power has its perks too.
There, a lot of contributions are partisan, but some of them are just strictly, we want to give to leaders.
All right. I promised you guys some special guests, and we got them here today. We got James Quisenberry, Urbana Alderman, State Senator Chapin Rose. Both of you, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Cole.
Obviously, a little bit of a slow start here to the results here in Champaign County. I want to start off. We talked a lot off the top of this stream about the issues Champaign County faced early on today. Senator Rose, I want to start with you. What did you take 2 hours of the polls being down? What was your reaction? What were you telling voters who were concerned about, the issues tonight?
Well, first of all, Cole, this isn't the first time this happened. This is the exact same problem we had 2 years ago. And County Clerk Ammons has learned nothing from that experience. Before he got here, everybody in this county could vote in 15 minutes or less. And now it's a multi-hour experience, or like in my own case, I had to go back a second day just to vote myself. So, he should have been prepared. He knew this was the exact same problem they had 2 years ago. He wasn't. It is complete chaos. He can blame whoever he wants to blame, but he should blame himself, because this was easily foreseeable based upon the exact same problem happening 2 years ago. That said, what we've been telling people all day, get in line. The last person in line at 7 o'clock absolutely will be able to vote, as they should. And so we've been pushing people all day. Just get in there by 6:59 p.m. Don't get there at 7:01. Get there and just unfortunately wait, because Aaron Ammons has created complete chaos in our Champaign County voting. I got 11 other counties I represent who have none of these problems.
James, you're obviously here a representative of the Champaign Democratic Party as well. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on your reaction to what was just said here.
It's unfortunate that we have a problem like that, but we've leveraged technology to expand voting. We have vote centers, so you can go to any polling place in the county and vote. When you use technology, when you move forward, sometimes there's issues. What I understand is this was a vendor issue. It was also affecting Sangamon County. Same vendor, Republican clerk there, similar problems.
Well, they worked through their problems. We're still having problems.
Well, we work through our problems too.
Okay.
And by mid-afternoon, early noon, it was people were voting. There weren't lines.
You brought up the voting center part of this, and that has been obviously a unique situation for Champaign County to be in. It's the only central Illinois county to use this. I believe Monroe County in the Metro East is now using voting centers, and then you have DuPage County up in the Cowler counties. James, if the voting center model overall, I'm curious what your thoughts are. Has that been a boon for Champaign County? Has that been strong, or obviously we've seen some kinks with like today where you don't have that sort of paper backup that's traditionally there.
Well, yeah, I think it's good to have a backup. I think that's something that we should be talking about. But it is a great advantage for someone to, particularly with early voting, to go to any one of the centers, the Champaign Library, the Illini Union on campus, and vote. You don't have to know that you go to the right place. In previous elections, earlier elections, people would go to the wrong precinct, and then they'd have to drive somewhere else to vote. In this day and age, with the technology we have, we shouldn't have to put up with that.
First of all, I agree with that, believe it or not. In fact, in theory, the voting center idea would be a great convenience to citizens. The truth of the matter is, in 2 elections now, the tech has failed. So we can talk about what would be nice, but the reality is it's been anything but convenient. It's been complete chaos. Again, in the case of not just myself, but having to go back on 2 different days just to cast one vote. I talked to countless citizens who showed up and said, "Oh, you've already voted," because the tech is giving them someone else with the same name's ballot, and they're voting that ballot, which then cancels out that person's vote, and then they're stuck in some provisional system. Again, it would be great if the tech worked, but it's not, and we need to get back to what works. Make this convenient for people, yes, but also make it so you don't have to stand in line for 2.5 to 3 hours.
Senator, I want to talk to you a little bit about the legal process that played out with this. There was a filing to try to extend voting in Champaign County from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. The initial filing was withdrawn, and it's obviously stayed the same. 7 p.m. was the cutoff for people needing to be in line. There were some questions from, I know, local Republicans about the merits of that filing and the legal standing of that filing. What was the concern with that in the way that it was originally written, and how they just wanted to extend the voting hours outright?
So I think that the issue is that you can't just extend the voting hours, then all those people would have to vote provisionally. Whereas if you're in line at 7 o'clock, no matter who you are, no matter where you are, if you're in line at 7 o'clock, you will vote. So the better thing that we were telling our supporters is, look, just be in line by 7 and you're going to vote. You know, you don't have to worry about voting provisionally and rehabilitating your ballot later and executing an affidavit and doing all those other steps. Again, after the fact, all caused by Aaron Ammons' office not being up to the task yet again in this county.
Would there have been a problem with ballots being casted provisionally if there was an agreement between the Democrat and Republican Party to do so? I know provisional ballots open up a lot more legal challenge possibilities, but I'm curious if would that be there if both parties were able to say, look, we know there was a problem, let's extend it for 2 hours. We're seeing a lot from the Champaign County Democratic Party saying that we couldn't come to an agreement with the Republicans on this matter.
First of all, it's the state law. The state law says that anything after the 7 o'clock close would be counted provisionally. There's no way around that. You can't just waive that unilaterally. Secondarily, though, what's interesting about this is the Democrats withdrew their own motion. They were free to proceed on that argument if they wished, but they pulled their own motion. I understand once Aaron found out it was going to have to be provisional, he just threw his hands up and said, well, that's going to be too much of a mess for us to figure out the next day. And so all those, if that was your position, you could have proceeded to the hearing. Nobody proceeded to the hearing. They withdrew their own motion. I mean, it was pretty amazing to see somebody make a motion to do something and then withdraw once they figured out how to be counted provisionally.
Well, I know there were questions about whether or not there was that agreement between on whether or not they were provisional, or even if it was provisional, if there was that agreement between the parties to maybe not go on and challenge those ballots in that way. But
you can't just waive the state law.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the state law is clear. They would have to vote provisionally.
James, I'm sorry. I've been talking to the senator for so long here.
I think the final outcome was the best outcome because, as Chapin pointed out, if you're in line at 7 o'clock, you can vote, whether it takes to 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. And we won't have a delay in knowing an additional delay and knowing what's going to happen in Champaign County. I don't know what the conversation with the Republican Party chair was, but I heard similar things to you that there wasn't an agreement there. So how could we move forward? I'm
curious from your perspective, especially coming from an alderman's perspective. The senator has talked about some of the issues that have been around in Champaign County specifically for previous elections. What is the conversation like going forward about, establishing that trust, making sure people go into an election day believing their ballots are going to be counted?
I'll talk about it from the perspective of IT because that's my day job. What's going to have to happen is an after-action analysis of how this vendor let us down. I understand we're at the end of the contract with this particular vendor, and I would say they will have a hard time continuing to serve this county. It's a county. It's not a city alderman kind of question. The county board will have to, support funding what the next step looks like.
All right. Well, we've talked a lot about this here. I want to get to what I was originally going to have you guys in for. Talk about some races. Obviously, here in Champaign County, we don't have those results yet because we haven't seen polls officially close up. None of those results are going to be coming in. Senator, I want to talk with you specifically. If I can have you look, we have the 52nd State House district here. We got zeros on the board, obviously. This district was Scott Bennett's old seat. There's a Republican challenger from Jeff Brownfield. What about this district is where do Republicans try to get an in this particular district, knowing that it has such a broad area, but it has the whole Champaign-Urbana community as well?
Yeah, certainly the Vermilion County side of it is where the Republican Party, would go, as well as independents and sort of swing voters in the city of Champaign, particularly kind of the west side of Champaign. But I would say that in this, honestly, if you look at these two gentlemen, they ran races the way that in your high school textbook, you want to see races won. They had ideas, they had issues. They were rarely terse or curse. They were just very nice individuals. And at the end of the day, I think the voters had a choice to make, but they had a nice choice to make between two companions, based on issues and based on ideas. Really, that's how you want to see races run. But where would Republicans go? It's Vermilion and the west side of Champaign.
James, I'm curious what your thoughts are just as a Democrat. What have you thought about the way Paul has kind of stepped up into this seat after Scott Bennett's passing?
Yeah, and I can't be here tonight without recognizing Scott Bennett because he would have been doing this if he was still here. And we all miss him and his wisdom on a night like this. But, Paul Faraci has committed to come in and serve the rest of that term in the way that he felt Scott would have served it. And I think the people saw that. And it's already a Democratic leaning district to begin with. And so, Paul's a great candidate, and I expect him to win.
Got it. Of course.
Echo this too. It is. I mean, Scott Bennett was a friend of many, including myself. And honestly, it's nice that you're here, James. But for many years, he and I did this show, and we all miss him greatly. And I also need to put that out there.
Got it. Well, and yeah, obviously they are correct. Scott Bennett was a staple of our election night coverage for quite a bit. So we do miss him, and this race will be interesting to see how it plays out and how that kind of shapes up. The other statewide district that I wanted to talk with you both about is this 104th State House. This is the other local State House race. Brandon Schweizer, an incumbent of 1 year, running against Jarrett Clem. I am going to start this time with you, James, because I let Senator Rose talk about the sort of makeup where they would target in this district. This is such an interesting one. A lot of rural Champaign County, a lot of Vermilion County, including Danville. Where's the Democratic foothold in this? Where's the Democrat foothold in this district?
Because it has Rantoul and it wraps around the city of Champaign and Urbana. It gets Savoy. The different areas around Champaign are changing over time. This district has been coming closer to the center, closer to left. So it was an opportunity. You can see that in the fact that I think close to $1 million has gone into this campaign on the Democratic side and $500,000 on the Republican side just for a state rep seat. People thought this was going to be a close race.
Yeah, it's so interesting to see the amount of money poured into this race, considering how solidly red that this seat has been. Senator, I talked a little bit about this earlier in the show, talking about how there's nobody on the Republican side expecting majorities to flip in the State House this time around, but it's about chipping away and getting some of these seats. In order to do that, you have to hold on to what you have too.
Correct.
What have you thought? Take me into that process a little bit, what it's like to be, on the campaign side of the Republican Party right now.
Well, look, first of all, you said it, we got to chip away, right? But this seat that, you guys start holding. And this is a key pickup or a key hold for the House Republicans. The seat did change from last time we had a census. So, we're now on this kind of this new map, and you had Mike Marin, the previous incumbent. And this is kind of a new map going into this new decade, and you're kind of seeing a new incumbent in terms of appointed Representative Schweizer, but he's done a great job. He had the backing of, a bunch of different groups in the state representing kind of a very diverse district. James is absolutely right. Because of the change in the census, it does lean more to the middle, not necessarily to the left, but to the middle. But you got to hold the Schweizer seat, and I think he's done a great job. I also think his challenger made a pretty terrible mistake accusing Representative Schweizer of, not being a patriot when Representative Schweizer is an discharged Marine who's seen combat duty. And I think Representative Schweizer has played that issue much to his advantage. Again, I think an unforced error by his challenger.
It'll be very interesting to see these results as they come in. Again, we are not seeing any sort of results yet from Champaign County. They are not able to actually put them up until those final ballots are cast. We've talked extensively about the problems that we've seen so far, but zeros on the board for this district. Gentlemen, I'm going to keep you around for just a little bit to talk about some of these local issues we're seeing. But first, I want to go over to Jack Crum, who is over in Mahomet today. He's been following a local school district initiative. Jack, are you able to hear me?
I am. How's it going, Cole? Happy Election Day.
Oh, yeah, it's a blast over here, Jack. I hope you're having a great time out there. Jack, if you can take us into this school board initiative, school district initiative, tell me a little bit about it, what voters are deciding on today.
Yeah, Cole, it's a referendum, and it's a big-time one. It's a $113 million one to build a second and third grade building for students, but it's also going to do a lot more than that. You're also going to see relocation of second graders from Midtown Prairie and third graders from Lincoln Trail. It's going to pay for improvements for Lincoln Trail School, build a new junior high building. It's going to move the soccer field at the junior high site over the high school and put a new track at the junior high site. So there's a lot on this ballot this time. And voters are, I got to say, Cole, after talking to some people in line at some polling stations around here, they're kind of split. I mean, this has been on the ballots now. Would have been on this the third time in the last 2 years that the voters would have this question or a similar one like it posed towards them.
on an issue like this. I'm curious what their reasonings are for this. Obviously, this is a tax increase that they would be seeing, but what are they? Is that really the bulk, or is it sort of they're worried about opening the floodgates in a way and allowing for one tax increase and worried about what could happen down the road?
Yeah, Cole, that's a great way to put it, actually. And I spoke to the two main people that I spoke with. Both were parents standing in line, one for, one against. Now, the one for talked heavily about investing in the future, wanting to make sure that his kids had new schools and all that. And it's not to say that the person that I spoke to who said they didn't want that doesn't want nice things, but they disagreed off of principle. She also said that she was a little bit annoyed from what I could tell that this was on the ballot once again after similar posing questions were turned down in recent years. So it's a lot of, it goes both ways. And I think the way that you put it is one of the best ways to put it.
All right, Jack, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to let our guests weigh in on this a little bit as well as some more of these local races that we've seen. Senator Rose, I'm going to start with you. This is your home turf. What are your thoughts on this third time around for this proposal?
Yeah, I get the sense it's going to be a lot closer this time. It really wasn't that close the first couple of times, but I get the sense this one's going to be a little closer. I was talking to my neighbors, but I will say that it's never, when you're in a community like Muhammad or any community under 50,000 people, it's never quite as black and white as just a tax increase. Personalities get involved, whose kid got benched and whose kid got to play. I mean, you get all these things, right? And so it's never quite as black and white as what reporters want to make it out to be, with no disrespect to you, Cole. But I do think this one's going to be a little bit closer this time.
Am I able to ask where you kind of fell on this particular one?
You're not going to put me on that spot, buddy.
All right, I'll let you go. I didn't give him a heads up that I'd be asking him that, but we'll leave you for there. Or leave you right there on that one. There's another question. There's a couple of questions on the Champaign ballot. There's the Champaign County sales tax increase. There's also the Champaign Township limiting rate question. I want to start with this is actually the Champaign Township question that we have on the ballot here. I'm curious where, James, kind of you see this helping out, and specifically with the low barrier shelter. And do you have any input on kind of how this has played out at all? I know that you're the Urbana alderman. This is the township issue, but.
Well, I can tell you that homelessness is not a Champaign or an Urbana issue. It's a community issue. So if this shelter has to close its doors, it's going to impact the whole area. I think it's really challenging. I can't talk about it in a vacuum, because when you have two tax increases on the ballot in a time like this where people are really feeling it in their pocketbook, it's hard to see both of them passing. And so, people are going to go to this and they're going to be looking at the county increase quotient, and they're going to be looking at, the Stride shelter and whether they need to keep that open. And they're going to make a choice there. I don't think they're going to choose both.
Yeah. And Senator, we've had so many conversations about these sort of small incremental tax increases, both at the state level, local levels. The Champaign County sales tax issue, James mentioned $0.25 cent. It's being referred to as the public safety tax increase. The sheriff's office has talked about what it would do for them. We've heard about from the public defender's perspective. That is been an ongoing issue. Public defenders across the state, really, because of the increases to those pretrial services that your favorite topic, the Safety Act, has brought into play. I'm just curious, well, first of all, what you thought of James's comments there.
Yeah, I think, first of all, he's right that this is a issue, but it also needs to be addressed holistically, right? I mean, there was an interesting public meeting a couple of weeks ago where some of the downtown business community came and said, hey, look, this homeless shelter is causing serious safety problems in downtown Champaign, and it's causing us to expend resources and lose customers. And so there's a whole other side to that as well. But I think that the public safety tax, the Champaign County one, my sense is it fails. I think it also for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is if you had enough money to go buy TV ads and radio ads and send people direct mail, then obviously you're not that broke. Okay. And they took our property tax money to use it against us. And I think that was absolutely wrong. But I also think that this is a shell game. And to say that, all the property tax dollars that are going into the county coffers can't be used for the jail and the state's attorney's office and the public defender's office and all those things you just listed off, well, where are they going? And so I don't think they made the case to the citizens. Now, when I say that, you also have a bunch of University of Illinois students that are going to vote that tend to just hit yes. And so, I'd love to hear James's thoughts. I really would on where he sees the sales tax, the quarter-cent sales tax going. But your first thing you said, though, I think is exactly right. Overarching all of these little nuances is disposable income. People don't have it. I mean, if Donald Trump wins tonight, which sometime in the next 6 weeks, whenever we actually find out, it'll be because real income for Americans has gone down. And you can say whatever you want about inflation being down to 2.8% or down to 2.1%. It doesn't matter. Your income didn't keep pace with the massive hyperinflation we had for the first 3 years of Harris Biden. And that transfers all the way down to Champaign County. I think he hit the nail on the head when he said it's hard to see two of these things passing. And Muhammad, you just brought up, you've got a property tax increase, plus the city of Champaign, or excuse me, the county of Champaign quarter-cent. I'd like to hear what you have to say about the quarter-cent.
I'm leaning that the Muhammad question for the schools passes because this gives people in Muhammad something they can say no to and say yes to another thing. So that creates a space for that. And it's really hard. Who pays sales tax in Champaign County? Majority, it's the residents of Champaign and Urbana and Savoy, Muhammad and Rantoul as well. But you're making this case on services that most people don't feel themselves availing themselves of, right? Sheriff's deputies, yes, it's important. We have to raise salaries because it's competitive. But if I live in Urbana or Champaign or even Muhammad, I have a police force. And so I don't need to worry about raising sheriff deputies costs. We all hope we're not going to be using the jail services or the court services. And so how do you promote that? I think the other things that they could have done with this from the county perspective, how it would allow the county to do more for everyone would have been a better way to promote it.
All right. Alderman, Senator, I would love to sit here and talk with you a lot more, but we have to get going. We have the 9 o'clock newscast coming up. I'm going to have a cut in real quick as well right before that 9 o'clock newscast. I want to thank you both so much for joining us to help break down some of these issues.
Tomorrow morning when we get Aaron Ammons' mess figured out and figure out what the ballots are.
One more shot in for the senator. Okay, all right. We'll let you get going here. Thank you both so much for joining us. We're going to go ahead and take a look at some more of these big number races before we get going. Let's start off by going to nationwide presidential totals and the most likely ones. We're going to start here, 26% of the vote in. Let's head over, look at that U.S. electoral map. Right now, obviously, a long way to go. A lot of gray still on that map. Former President Trump starting off with a good lead early on with not too many surprises, I'd say, so far, at least on this map. And then here is the statewide voter totals here in Illinois. Obviously, again, we're showing Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on the ballot. He is picking up at least a few votes, not nearly as much as the two other candidates. But we're going to go ahead and take a look. These numbers are pretty extensive so far, 60% in Illinois and a 13-point lead here in Illinois, an interesting margin considering the larger margins that Trump has lost Illinois by. Gentlemen, again, thank you both so much for joining us. I'm going to take the desk back here for this 8:56 live shot, if you don't mind.
Okay, no problem. Thanks.
I won't bring out the broom or anything like that. But thank you guys.
If that number holds for Illinois, Trump wins the country.
All right. Well, you heard it here first, folks. I appreciate everybody tuning in for our live stream today. Again, we're going to keep this going. We're going to do a cut in right before our 9 o'clock newscast over on WCIX. Please tune in over there for the most up-to-date information on these races as well. Again, you're probably going to see a short cut here as we go into this cut in before the 9 o'clock newscast. I'm going to hit on the congressional races once that gets started here. So again, I'm just going to pull up these numbers just so everybody can see them for the time being as we get this shot set up. 33% of the ballot in, or the precincts in for the 13th congressional district. Nikki Budzinski holding a 9,000 vote lead, give or take a few. So again, we're going to be going into our cut-in here for the 9 o'clock newscast. WCIX for 9 o'clock here on for the latest on our information, and then we're going to have more at 10 o'clock. Thank you guys so much for joining us on this live stream. Thank you so much to our guests. Welcome to the WCIA cut-in here before our 9 o'clock newscast over on WCIX. I wanted to bring you some updates from the congressional races here in Illinois. We're going to start with the 13th congressional district. That's here in central Illinois and stretches down to the Metro East area. Nikki Budzinski holding a 53 to 47% lead over Joshua Lloyd, a political newcomer and veteran, trying to unseat the one-term incumbent. So this race right now still very close, only 35% of the vote in. So we'll see a lot more from that going on. Now let's go to the other big congressional race here in central Illinois, or in northern Illinois for this matter as well. The 17th congressional district. We have Joe McGraw, the Republican, facing off against Eric Sorensen. Eric Sorensen, the Democrat incumbent, trying to hold off this challenge. We just saw these ballots, or these numbers update here, 52% to 48%. McGraw holding an early lead. Again, very, very early, 32% of this ballot in. Let's take a look at where this district really stretches from. It's an interesting one for sure, going from Rockford all the way down to the Quad Cities, over into Peoria, and then all the way down into Bloomington as well. This race was a real toss-up in 2022, with Sorensen coming out on top. He's hoping to hold off a Republican challenger again as he goes in for he tries to get term number 2. Democrats holding on to both of these seats in Illinois would be a very big advantage in trying to hold on to the overall power in the House of Representatives out in D.C. Republicans have held a majority over the last 2 years. Democrats trying to change that, while Republicans are trying to maybe get power in both the Senate and the House of Representatives and maintain all of it. We're going to continue to bring you more updates tonight, obviously here on WCIA 3 and as well at WCIX. Our 9 o'clock news is just starting now.
You're watching your local news leader. This is a special edition of WCIA 3 News at 9 on X49, your local election headquarters.
Welcome to Election Night in Central Illinois. It is 9 p.m. The polls closed 2 hours ago. The votes are being counted, and WCIA 3 has your latest results here tonight.
From the race for the White House to some Central Illinois sales tax questions.
Today's votes will let us know what direction this country is headed for the next 4 years. So let's get it started.
Kamala broke it, and I will fix it, and I'll fix it very quickly.
It is time to turn the page on Donald Trump.
It's been billed as one of the most consequential elections in history. Who will be the 47th president of the United States?
I don't think George has been doing the job as he should.
I've done a good job.
Plus, both men want the job, but voters will decide whether their position will be eliminated.
It's why in Illinois we see women traveling from as far as Texas to come to Illinois to seek reproductive health care.
And finally, how voters in Illinois can advise lawmakers on the future of their reproductive rights.
Name from your local election headquarters, I'm Jennifer Roscoe.
I'm Karina Rubio.
And I'm Brandon Morano. Results have been coming in all night. We have team coverage to break down all the votes and results. WCI 3's Amanda Brennan is live at the Brookins Administrative Center in Urbana. Jack Crum in Mahomet. Theodore Coulivaris live in the Quad Cities. And Capitol Bureau Chief Cole Henke is live in the Election Center to break it all down.
We start tonight at the top of the ballot in the race for the White House. Former President Donald Trump looks to become the first candidate since Grover Cleveland to serve non-consecutive terms, while Vice President Kamala Harris aims to be the first woman elected as president. Here are the numbers as they look statewide. 64% of precincts in. Kamala Harris has 55% of the vote to Donald Trump's 43%.
To the U.S. House and the race for the 13th district that starts in Urbana and continues east to Springfield and then south to the metro east of St. Louis. Democrat incumbent Nikki Budzinski taking on Republican challenger Joshua Lloyd. We have 42% of precincts reporting, and Budzinski, it looks like Lloyd with a lead here. We have 63% of the vote for Lloyd, 37% for Budzinski. To the 17th district, which runs along the northwest of the state, including towns like Rockford, Peoria, Bloomington, and Normal. Incumbent Democrat Eric Sorensen is taking on Republican Joseph McGraw, a retired judge. We have 41% of precincts reporting here, and the Republican ahead in this race, but it's a close one. McGraw has 51% of the vote, 49% for Sorensen. And joining us live from Moline, where the Sorensen election party is going on, WCIA 3's Theodora Coulivaris. Theodora.
Jennifer, we're here tonight at Congressman Eric Sorensen's campaign event. So far, everybody seems to be in pretty good spirits. There's a lot more people here than there was earlier. I spoke to campaign officials a little bit ago, and they said that they're feeling pretty good about how things are going so far tonight. Of course, we're still waiting for more results to come in, but overall, they say that they feel that things are going pretty well. They say Congressman Eric Sorensen has visited all 14 counties within the 17th congressional district within the past couple of days. And of course, this is one of the more competitive congressional races in Illinois. National Republicans have really been keeping a close eye on this race. They're hoping that they can flip this district red, add this district to their already slim majorities in the U.S. House of Representatives. But Democrats think that they can keep control of this seat, and that if they can hold on to this seat, that this can help them add, and hopefully, what they say would be hopefully to get control of the U.S. House of Representatives at the end of the day. We've seen a lot of the issues at the national level and the presidential race have also kind of trickled down into this race when it comes to issues like immigration and border security. Both candidates have talked about really going after the issues related to fentanyl. And we've also seen the issue of abortion come up in this race as well. Sorensen has said he wants to protect abortion rights at the federal level, where we've seen McGraw say that he supported the Supreme Court's decision to send Roe v. Wade back to the states, the issue of abortion rights back to the states, but he would not support a national abortion ban. And we will continue to keep you updated throughout the night as we learn more results. But for now, reporting live in the Quad Cities, I'm Theodora Coulivaris, WCIA 3, your local news leader.
All right, Theodora, thank you so much.
In the race for the 12th district of the House that starts in Oakland and covers the entire southern part of the state, Democrat and Carbondale lawyer Brian Roberts is taking on five-term Congressman Mike Bost. As for the results, we are looking at 68% of precincts reporting. This one seems to be a runaway right now, with Bost taking 74% of the vote to Roberts just 26%. And joining us live from the Election Center is our Capitol Bureau Chief Cole Henke. Cole, what do the numbers look like so far?
Well, really, we're seeing a lot of interesting results so far around Central Illinois. Obviously, with Champaign County still holding off on their results coming in, it's hard to tell on a lot of these local races. But first, I want to go to this 13th congressional district. This is Nikki Budzinski against Joshua Lloyd here. Obviously, a big chunk of votes coming in for Josh Lloyd recently. Him holding on to a pretty comfortable lead again, with Champaign County still struggling to bring in results right now. That's a big chunk of this district here. So I want to go over to the map for this district just to give you an idea of how widespread this is. We see Champaign up here over to Decatur and over to Springfield as well, down to the Metro East. That race will be interesting to watch, especially as we see more areas of the state come in again with 60% of this vote in, a pretty significant change here for this race. Other races, obviously 104th State House District, Brandon Schweizer, Jared Clem. That race is going to be one that we're going to be watching throughout the night, but again, no results coming in as of right now. Still zeros on the board for this one. The 17th congressional district, Theodora just got in on that as well. A lot of races, a lot of interesting results. Still too early to tell on a lot of these races. Brandon.
All right, Cole, thank you. We'll check back in with you later.
And we're just getting started here. Still to come, should millionaires be taxed more in this state? Find out how people voted on that question.
Plus, Champaign County wants a tax hike to improve public safety.
And Mahomet Seymour voters are once again being asked to help pay for new school buildings. Champaign County is asking voters to weigh in on a few referendums. The first is a sales tax increase of 0.25% for public safety reasons.
It would raise $7 million a year, and it would pay for new ways to respond to a scene, including mental health professionals, and pay for salaries in the public defender's office. Another referendum in Champaign County is asking if the position of auditor should be eliminated. A yes vote would mean the county would hire one rather than elect one, essentially nullifying the results of tonight's race for Champaign County Auditor. On that note, we go to Amanda Brennan live at the Brookings Administrative Center in Urbana. Amanda, things a lot calmer out there, but we do know that there are still people waiting in line to vote in Champaign County, and it is 9:10.
Yeah, Jennifer, it's a completely different story here at Brookins than it was just a couple of hours ago. The last couple of voters are casting their ballots inside in the gym now, but I've also checked in with other busy polling places here in Champaign County. The chief deputy has confirmed with me that about 150 people are still in line at the ARC, that's the gym over on the U of I campus. Over at the library, she originally told me about 150 people. That was just about 15 minutes ago. One of our other WCIA3 reporters is at the library. He just texted me, said there's about 40 people in line now. So once those people move through the lines and are able to cast their ballot, that's when the Champaign County Clerk, Aaron Ammons, is officially going to be able to start getting to work, and we may start seeing some results coming up. Now, the chief deputy just also confirmed to me inside the building she's not expecting to see anything until about 10 or 11 p.m. But again, something we are actively watching at WCIA. Just want to quickly recap this morning, though. It wasn't always this calm. There was a brief outage for about 2 hours at polling places across Champaign County. And originally, Champaign County State's Attorney Julia Reitz, as well as Aaron Ammons, they wanted to extend to about 9 p.m., but they took that to court. They actually ended up deciding, no, let's still end voting at 7 p.m. because if they had switched and extended hours, that means that they would have had to switch to provisional ballots. And Aaron Ammons says those take a lot longer to count logistically. So they just wanted to end things at 7 p.m., get everyone through. And like we said, it is currently 9:11 p.m. here, and there are still people across Champaign County waiting to cast their ballots. So that's the update here in Urbana. I'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
All right, Amanda, thank you so much.
Still to come on election night coverage, a multi-million-dollar referendum looking to create new school buildings in Mahomet.
Plus, we take a look at the closest local races.
And should the state mandate healthcare providers to cover unlimited IVF treatments? Don't go anywhere.
You're watching your local election headquarters. You're watching your local election headquarters.
Welcome back to election night coverage. The Mahomet Seymour School District asking voters once again for a tax increase to fund new school buildings. It would cost the average $100,000 homeowner about $265 a year or $22 a month. And let's get to WCIA3's Jack Crum, who is live in Mahomet. Jack, you have been out there for most of the day. What have you been hearing from officials or voters in town?
Hey, Karina, apologies, I didn't hear your question there. However, I can tell you that of the $113 million proposal, there is people for and there are people against. Now, I went to one of the polling places here in Mahomet, and I talked to some people who are for and I talked to some who are against. I want to kind of give you some of the reasons that they cited for being for or against. Now, the people I spoke to who were for it was parents of kids, within the district. And a lot of the parents that I actually spoke with said that they think it's important to invest in the future. Obviously, this is the third time over the last 2 years this proposal has been on there. However, that reason is also why some people are saying no. Now, of the people I spoke with, also parents who said no, that they said they're voting no off of principle, saying it's too expensive, and that they're kind of annoyed by the number of times that it's been on, with one equating it to getting denied money from your mom and then going and asking your dad. Now, I also wanted to highlight that I did reach out to Dr. Kenny Lee, who's the superintendent of Mahomet Seymour Schools, and he did tell me that he hopes that for a great turnout. He said it's very important to them that as many voters exercise their right to let their voice be heard. And obviously, some people within this district are hoping for the best here today. So for now, in Mahomet, I'm Jack Crum, WCI3, your local news leader.
All right, Jack, thank you. We're going to take a look at the advisory questions at the top of every ballot in Illinois,
including insurance coverage for infertility treatments.
Plus, should millionaires be taxed more to provide a property tax relief for the middle class? We'll be right back.
Thanks for joining us again for election night coverage. At the top of every ballot in our state are 3 non-binding advisory questions. These questions wouldn't change state law, but would advise lawmakers on the direction Illinois wants to go.
The first question asks if people should face civil penalties for threatening or interfering with the work of election judges. And here are the results so far in this. We have half of the precincts reporting right now. And yes, way ahead, 89% of you saying yes to more protections. The second advisory question asks whether Illinois millionaires should pay an additional tax that would go toward a property tax relief fund. Former Governor Pat Quinn says the 3% tax would generate $500 million. And here are the results so far in this race. Again, half of the precincts in, and the yes votes ahead in this one, 62%. The no votes trailing 38%.
The final question asking whether healthcare plans in our state should mandate IVF coverage under the Affordable Care Act. Let's take a look at those results. We have about half of precincts reporting and 74% saying yes, a big lead over the no voters, only 26% saying no.
So to come on election night, Capitol Bureau Chief Cole Henke joins us to break down some of the tightest local races.
Plus, we take another look at the race for the White House.
Will former President Donald Trump win another term, or will Kamala Harris be their first woman elected president?
You're watching your local election headquarters.
Welcome back to election night coverage. Results have been coming in all night. We're joined again by WCI3's Capitol Bureau Chief Cole Henke. Cole, what are some races we should be watching tonight?
All right, the first ones obviously are those big congressional races here in Illinois. We have the 17th congressional district between Eric Sorensen and Joe McGraw. Just recently, as more results have come in, Eric Sorensen pulling back a lead, 56% of the vote in, Sorensen 53 to 47. That's an interesting one to keep an eye on. It's expected to remain tight. You have the 13th here, which is very interesting with Joshua Lloyd, the big lead right now over Nikki Budzinski. But again, important thing to note here, we have no Champaign County results. That's a big part of this district here. You can see just how big this is, going from Champaign all the way down into the Metro East. We have some of this, but none of this. So that's the big one that we have to watch out for. Those congressional races are going to play a big role in what goes on in D.C. But Brandon, back to you.
All right, Cole, thank you. We'll be right back.
And that'll wrap up the first half of our election night coverage.
Ballots continue to be counted, and we will continue to keep you up to date on all those latest results.
Join us again at 10 for more on the races and referendums that will decide the future of Central Illinois.
Results coming in right now. We're going to take a look at the race for the White House. These are how Illinois voters are voting. We have 3/4 of the precincts in, and Kamala Harris, the Democrat, has 54% of the vote to Donald Trump's 44%.
Turning now to the race for the Illinois House of Representatives, we start with the race for the 12th Congressional District. 5-term Congressman Mike Bost taking on Democratic challenger Brian Roberts. Here are those results: 74% of precincts reporting, and Bost with 74% of the vote, a substantial lead over Roberts, who has 26%. In the race for the 13th Congressional District, incumbent Democrat Nikki Budzinski taking on Republican Joshua Lloyd. As we just heard Cole Henke report, there was a correction from AP. We're waiting to learn the exact results of this race. We will continue to keep you updated. Champaign County had some voter issues, so we're waiting on voter totals here.
In the race for the 17th Congressional District, this race has been getting some national attention. Democratic incumbent Eric Sorensen is taking on retired Judge Joe McGraw. Now, here are the results. With 58% of precincts reporting, Sorensen has a narrow lead over the judge, 53 to 47%.
All right, we're going to have more local election results tonight at 10 o'clock, and we're going to start a little bit before the 10 o'clock, so you're going to have to stick around. We're going to be on at 9:56, and we are going to have 35 minutes of all of the latest results. Hopefully, we're going to start getting in some numbers from Champaign County. I alluded to the fact that there were still voters in line at the library across the street from us. We also heard that there are voters still in line at the Arc. So they are trying to get through. Of course, that was delayed 2 hours this morning. So those voters have been waiting in line. I've heard some 3 hours just to be sure that their vote is counted.
Perkins was shut down, but as Jennifer said, voters still coming in here. So we'll have those results.
All right, we'll see you again at 10 o'clock, 9:56.